I go back to church in my 20s. Lord knows I've got a lot of issues and I need some serious help. I grew up in the church and liked it as a kid, but as I've gotten older, I've noticed some pretty fishy shit that I haven't noticed as a child. First of all, it's very cliquey, like high school. Every Sunday is a fashion show. Did you see what she was wearing today? Where'd she think she was going? Girl, I wouldn't be caught dead in that thing. Excuse me, I thought we weren't supposed to judge. What happened to the saying, come as you are? There's a guest preacher this week. I take a good look at this man. Wait, isn't this the guy who was popping bottles and dropping dollars in the club last week? I saw what that man was up to. What could this fool possibly have to say to me that's righteous? And now they want me to give my hard-earned money to a bunch of punk-ass preachers who have fancier cars and nicer clothes and more jewelry than me and everybody else in this church? I'm sorry, but I've never seen them dig deep into their pockets when the baskets come around. No, no, no. I'm done with this. I know I need help, but I'm having a very hard time having any kind of faith right now. But I've got nothing to fall back on and no one to talk to. When I get a job at Kroger's, a supermarket, I'm brimming with anger. Sometimes what I do with my anger scares me. I get into fights. I nearly kill someone. Luckily, this job takes the edge off a little. I like working with food, and I love when I have the opportunity to learn new things. First, I'm a meat wrapper, and then I learn how to fillet large salmon. That's all fun and good, but what I really want to learn is how to cut meat. I've always had a fascination with big knives and table saws. I asked the guys in charge, Julius and Mr. Billy, when am I going to get my shot at cutting meat? They both have snide smirks on their faces. There's some nonverbal communication between them, and they seem to think that this is funny. Well, what the fuck is so damn funny? Why can't I learn to cut meat? They respond practically in unison. Because you're a girl. Then they laugh out loud as if they just cracked the funniest joke ever. This just sends me into the stratosphere with rage. I know I could kick both their old dusty asses at the same time. But instead of being overly emotional like they are expecting because I'm a girl, I ask, so what do I have to do to prove I can do this job? Well, you have to start from the bottom, one of them says. I agree to the terms, and for the next few months, I work very hard making deliveries and hamburger meat. Then my chance finally comes. I'm learning to cut meat. I'm a very quick study. I've been watching them for months, and I'm practically trained without any help. I grab the biggest knife and the biggest piece of beef. As I start to dismantle this beef into steaks, roasts, and stew beef, I feel a peace coming over me. There's something very therapeutic about cutting this meat and it bleeding. I find that cutting meat is an antidote to my rage, a stress reliever. Every day I come to work, I can't wait to cut meat. My mind wanders to how angry I've been since I was 9 years old and we packed up and moved away from my dad. I cut, and I feel as if I'm cutting my anger away. I slam the meat on the counter, trim the fat, pick it up, turn it over. Cutting meat is like body slamming the person I'm thinking of. I think about all the different men who violated me. Precise cutting. Take that, bastard. A deep cut. How's that feel? I almost feel like crying as I finish this soulful cleanse. I show those guys who thought I couldn't do it because I'm a girl and became a certified butcher. I love my work. Then one day when I'm almost 30, I'm at my new butchering job and my joints begin to ache. Days go by and getting heavier and heavier, and I'm having trouble walking. I'm an active, athletic person. How could this be? In a few months, there's a dreadful morning when I can't move. I mean, I really can't move at all. I call my mate for help. EMS puts me on the gurney. Test after test, stick after stick, doctors still guessing. Finally, after 2 biopsies, they determine I have sarcoidosis, an immune disorder that involves abnormal collections of inflammatory cells that can form as nodules, often in the lungs. I wind up in the care of a specialist. He puts me on a treatment that has me lying in bed with a needle in my arm 4 days a month for 3 months. Now I have tremendous amount of time on my hands to think and no way to get out my anger. This is not good right now. I have already had to give up my life. No sports, walking, or hiking. Hell, going to work for 5 hours wipes me out. How can I continue to live like this? I refuse to be a burden to anyone. I can barely do daily chores like washing myself. But as I lie in this bed with fluid dripping into my veins, I start to notice other people, women, men, young, old, all of them much sicker than me. And then one day I see a child getting chemo. All of a sudden, things are in perspective, just that quick. I know I need to fight. These people are much worse off than me. At least I have a possible end in sight. Who knows what they face? Who am I to gripe? I get better and learn how to manage my condition. The whole experience helps me to rediscover my faith. It's a cooler than usual September morning in South Carolina. A few months earlier, I had confessed my love for God and his son and turned my life over to Christ. Now the day is here when I will physically and spiritually wash my sins away. And I ask to be forgiven for all my bad and sinful, for all the bad and sinful things in my life thus far. When we arrive at the beach, before we could even get out of the car, I noticed that the water is very rough. Large crashing waves. I go stiff with fear. The 10 or so of us getting baptized come to the edge of the water as everyone else gathers around. They begin to pray. The bishop, who is my cousin, an evangelist, and the deacons head into the rough waters. They walk in about 20 or so feet and form a half circle with the open side facing us. As they begin to pray, the water leading to them and the water in the half circle begin to calm. I cannot believe my eyes. They fill with tears. We are brought in one at a time. When the bishop calls my name, I can barely hear him over the sound of my heartbeat. I start my walk into the water, the longest 20-foot walk of my life. When I reach them, I am waist deep. The bishop and the evangelist grab me from either side and dip me under. It seems as if it's happening in slow motion. I feel my body submerge, and for a moment, all is quiet. In this moment, there is no loss, no violation, no rage. I hold my breath, and in a split second, my mind wanders to a birth. As they bring me out of the water, I feel relief. My bishop cousin looks at me and says, "We better dunk you again." I go under once more. This time when I come up out of the water, I feel free. I feel as if a burden has finally been lifted. My rage has disappeared. I cry uncontrollably. My legs are weak as I try to walk out of the water. My family comes to my aid to help me walk up the beach. After a few steps, I turn to see where I just came from. Once the bishop, evangelist, and deacons emerge from the water, the calm pool regains its roughness, just like the rest of the ocean around it. and I look up at the clear blue sky and I smile.